himself to be a man both to himself and his regiment, because now they kind of respected him a bit more.
Yeah.
And so.
To me, this illustrates that a lot of really important things, you cannot go after them. They're not things like happiness. It's kind of, I'm sorry, make sure that's not, I don't think you can necessarily, if the pursuit of happiness, I like it in the Declaration, but I don't think you can pursue happiness. I think it's a byproduct of pursuing other things, and I see that in Henry. I'm seeing that he becomes what he wanted to become after he gave up wanting to become that. It's like what Jesus said, if you die to yourself, you'll find yourself. And I really do see that. I can make a case for it later, that he's no longer pursuing those things, and then once he gives up on them, he actually receives them. And you have to kind of die to self thing. Jessica?
I think that, well, what I found interesting was Wilson and Henry's relationship, because they kind of act like brothers to each other. Because at first they both didn't really like each other. Henry had the perception of Wilson that he was the loud soldier, and then he grew to like him. And when they both went to get the water, and they heard that they were going to be charging, and that they were called, their regiment was called mule drivers. They kind of kept that part out, and they kept it to themselves.
And why did they do that? What was their motive? They're the only ones that heard that. Why didn't they tell the other guys? Because it made them angry, but why didn't they tell the other guys? Why do you think they didn't tell them?
They probably didn't want it to affect their performance.
So they were now thinking of people other than themselves.
Yeah.
They had this motivation, but they didn't want to embarrass their regiment. So I think that's a good point, yes.
Well, to go along with like Henry's pride and stuff throughout the book, because, you know, he finally feels like he thinks so highly of himself, the fact that he like was able to do what he should have been doing from the beginning, and like I don't think he should have had that much pride and like self-absorbance, because I think he kind of just met the standards. Like I don't know, he didn't go like above and beyond. Well, I mean he did, like when he was fighting, but I feel like he should have been doing that from the beginning. Or if he like did some great heroic thing, I feel like he should have been, I don't know, a little more proud of that. But yeah, I feel like he didn't have that much to be proud of.
And I think we can all agree that when he comes back initially, he's not really changed. The only thing that's changed, he's back. But I wrote down on page 91 that Henry has become the loud soldier, and Wilson, the loud soldier, has now become the quiet soldier. Wilson is the one who's dramatically changed, but not Henry yet. Did you?
Can I grab my book from my life?
So just that's one thing I think. I love the way that is. It wasn't like an immediate, I'm a different person. I woke up the next day, I'm different. He isn't. It's still a gradual process, like the change for you and me will be. I doubt if, as we change, it's never overnight. It's gradual, and I think that makes this believable, because we still don't like him. But even when he comes back, now he's in a position to grow. Yeah, Emma Shag.
I thought it was strange that even though Henry was pretty much the main character, that he didn't have too much character development, and that he did have some points where he did make the right decision, but overall he didn't really follow that, and that he let into his pride rather than like fighting and doing even like the bare minimum.
But remember, when he comes back day 2, he's not doing the bare minimum. He's doing above what everybody. Instead of retreating, instead he stood his ground. That's what he didn't do day 1. Day 2, he not only stands his ground, but what does he do?
He pushes it.
I love that. It's just something about that. That famous Marine general in Korea. I think I've told you this before. It's just a great line. He's surrounded. And he's told that, and he says, great, they can't get away from us this time. He said, we can shoot them in every direction. I love that attitude. I'm not sure that's where I am yet, but don't you love to see these hopeless situations, and your attitude is, all right, this is just what I wanted. To me, that would be sort of a goal of mine, to be, in the day-to-day difficulties. Okay, it's got to get better, and expect it. Okay, There's a lot of other things, I don't know where we need to go, but, let's start with, Patty's not here. Clay, did you, I know you wanna keep
I
this
would
going?
say, I thought the flag wrestling scenes were kind of interesting.
The what? The wrestling?
Flag
Okay,
wrestling
gotcha.
scenes. I believe there were two where they wrestled. It was Wilson that got the second one, right? That was one of the questions? Okay, awesome. So I just wanted to make sure I got that right.
No.
Wilson got the enemy's flag.
Yeah, sorry, on the.
No,
Henry got
you
the
got it
first.
wrong.
No, Henry got ours, or sorry, Henry got
Right.
his, Wilson got the other.
Which was the second flag?
Yeah, okay.
He spooked
So,
me.
see? Okay. I forgot where I was going with that. Sorry.
Well, we can come back to it.
Well, I think
Oh,
Henry got the flag.
What's that?
The flag.
I mean, I can continue that.
It's telepathy, he knows exactly what you were gonna say, yeah.
Well, I think it's interesting, like, in the heat of the battle, they're wrestling for a flag. And so, like, I just thought that was different, like, normally they would be petrified, but they have the courage, number one, to charge, but also, like, they, like, sprint after this flag, then they're wrestling the dead body, then they're wrestling each other, trying to get the flag, and it's just like, it's a very unique picture.
And what is the significance of that flag?
Capture the flag?
Yeah, he's almost like, well, even if we can't win, as long as we capture the enemy's flag, like, that'll be a victory.
So the flag was pretty important. What's gonna happen to, where is the guy who carries the flag?
He does.
But, I mean, any guy that carries the flag, where are they gonna be?
I already said that.
Are they armed?
No.
Probably not.
Or do they stand out? He's the guy with the flag. Remember, they wanted to kill the guy with the flag to get the flag, so think about the courage involved there, that if you carry the flag, you're saying, here I am, I'm the guy with the flag, and I can't shoot back, I'm in front of everybody. So, to me, it might have been pride, but it's also, you know, a courage that I'm willing now to be, you know, I love his attitude toward death, the very thing he ran from 24 hours earlier. What is his attitude toward death? Yeah.
I think he sees it kind of as an honor though. He's
Yeah.
like, well, if I'm gonna die, you know, it's gonna happen here, and I'm not gonna be upset about it, I'm gonna take it as an honor. He's not really scared of it anymore.
No, I mean, and it's almost revenge. To me, the motivating factor of day 2 as opposed to day 1 is anger. And not anger toward himself, like, I'm just not as good as everybody, you know, like self-directed, I'm just not a good person. You know, I think we've all had these self-pity, it's the worst thing you'd ever do. That's what he did day 1. Day 2, he's angry at that guy over there, and it's healthy in war to be that way. I wrote this down, I was looking for it, and there are others that need to share. Bullets, I was on page, let's see, where is it? Page 123, talking about his attitude toward death and toward fighting now, 123.
Is this when he's, like, his regular knowledge?
Yeah, this is chapter 23, so it's literally the next to last chapter, and they're making another charge. In the the first full paragraph there says, he himself felt the daring spirit of a savage religion mad. He was capable of profound sacrifices, a tremendous death. He had no time for dissections, but knew that he thought of the bullets only as things that could prevent him from reaching the place of his endeavor. Now think about the ultimate, maybe that's the ultimate point of a soldier. The problem with that bullet is it keeps me from killing that guy over there. I'm not worried about anything what it's gonna do to me. What it's gonna do is gonna prevent my mission. It seems like I would, again, love to have that attitude in everything. Like, the only reason, you know, the problems, I'm not afraid of the problems, they're obstacles that keep me from getting there. I'll deal with it and go to the next thing. His face like a flint. I think, to me, that's one of my favorite lines in the book. Bullets are just obstacles, they're not death. And death itself now no longer is death of him personally, it's death of, I'm another soldier, and I'm just gonna be one less soldier to fight this battle. Let's see, Ian, what, Ian?
me most was, he still keeps up with the theme of nature. And so in the first battle, when they're in like the woods, after his, rage, he looks up and is like, this guy's just still completely blue.
Right.
And nothing really like changes at all around him besides him having complete rage.
Mhm.
And so it's just like, this massive change from, the face of the war and him being really angry all the time, to him just looking up and being completely calm afterwards. And then this also happens at the end, at the final part where, it starts to rain. And then through the clouds, the sun peers through over the river. And it's just like nature just carries on despite, all like the darkness around it.
Yes, don't wanna steal anybody's thunder here, but where did I put it? Okay, let me think, the chapter where he is the hero, oh yeah, with page 97. I don't know exactly what this is after, let me take a look at that. Yeah, my favorite chapter, but this is the chapter where he actually becomes the hero and fights. Page 97. Now, that's what you just said. Nature, you could look at nature as being completely ignorant of what he's doing. Completely, not ignorant, but careless, caring nothing about what he's doing. And then on page 97, if you turn that, if guys, I hope if you got your computer, make sure you're focused on what we're doing here. He says, the last paragraph, a cloud of dark smoke as from smoldering ruins went up toward the sun, now bright and gay in the blue enameled sky. Turn back to the chapter, let me see if I can find it, page 58. So keep your finger, that was 97. That was the moment after he becomes the hero. The sun now bright and gay in the blue enameled sky. Remember the last sentence of chapter 9, page 58? The red sun was pasted in the sky like a wafer. Those two sentences are opposites. The red sun, after the death of Jim Conklin, the death sun, it speaks of suffering, it speaks of sacrifice, it speaks of communion, it speaks of dying for someone else, substitutionary death. And then once he's now achieved that victory, he looks up in the sky, the sun now bright and gay in the blue enameled sky. So I think what the author's doing, and it's a great skill to notice how the setting reflects things that are going on the ground. And most of the time it seems the nature is not paying any attention to the suffering, but that doesn't happen on page 58. It doesn't happen on page 97, and then turn to page 130. I think I see a pattern. The very last sentence in the book. This is after, by the way, and we still got a few people. I want to hear from Kat. I don't want to overlook Clayton. Before we look at that, can y'all share something? I don't want to take something away from you.
I think at the end here with all the descriptions of nature, I think at this point Henry has reached a point where he can kind of separate war and the rest of the world in his mind, where he kind of views war as this completely isolated kind of world that abides by different rules, and that allows him to have be more at peace with the idea of death in battle. And at the end he expresses relief of what does it say? The youth smiled, for he saw that the world was a world for him, though many discovered it to be made of oaths and walking sticks. So I think kind of feels free of that different kind of world of battle, if that makes sense. While initially when he ran away, war and his own view of the world and self-preservation were kind of mixed together, so that he couldn't set his sense of self-preservation aside in order to fulfill his responsibilities.
You hear what she's saying? Think about that, and relate it to the whole idea of growing up. I think I don't wanna misinterpret what you're saying. This is what I'm thinking. You're making me think this. I may not be exactly what you're saying. But when you say you can sort of separate, the way I would put that is that you have perspective. Now you now can step back and look at it, and it's not the end of the world. And I think that's part of growing up. What just happened last period, whatever happened last period, good or bad, is not the end of the world. You can put it in perspective. To me, that's a great sign of maturity. One thing happens to you today, and you're just devastated. And the world's against me, Mom, just the world, nobody likes me, the world's against, we even say that, right? The world's against me. But in Henry's case, now he begins to see that, you even said it, the world is for me. In other words, there's a place for me in this world, because you can now step back and have perspective. And before we go to Clayton, on page 94, turn there. Now this may not be your perspective of the world or mine. Remember, this is Stephen Crane. We have to know what he thinks before we can apply to anything. But this is that chapter where he fought so well. At the bottom of page 94, he had taken up a first position behind the little tree with a direct determination to hold it against the world. He had not deemed it possible that his army could that day succeed. And from this, he felt the ability to fight harder. What is he really saying? When he realized his army could not win, he was determined to fight the harder because of that. That seems counterintuitive. We've lost. Like, remember yesterday, we're gonna lose, I'm gonna run, we're all gonna lose, I'm just smarter than everybody, I got out before they did. Now, he says, we're not gonna win. I'm gonna fight even harder. What's going on there? What's the psychology behind that thinking? It's like you give up, once you give up hope, you can start living. And to me, it's kind of what you're saying. Once you give up this, the world's against me, I don't know who I am, who am I? What's the meaning of life? Let's just go to work. Just do your job. Take the test, read the book, catch the pass, get knocked down, stand up again. It's like, once you get over oh goodness, life is so, that's really not maturity. Maturity is when you get to the point, as you said, this isn't the end of the world. There's more coming and I can't wait to get to it. But what is the psychology of giving up hope here in this case? And that becomes a motive. Do you understand that? Maybe we don't need to comment on it. But once he gives up, they told me, I've heard this said about men going to Vietnam. Before or when they stepped off the plane, and they were always there for a year, if they accepted the fact that they would not survive, then they could survive. It was the fear that they were going to die that made every day hellish. It was when they said, I'm not going to make it home. I'm going to die here. I can breathe now. I got that over with. Let me go do my job. And if it happens, it happens. I like that. And I think there's something, it's not the only way to look at life, but it's Stephen Crane's, and I think it's a soldier's way of looking at life. I think he's reflecting all those interviews he had, all those wars he covered. I think there's a truth there about it. The only way you're going to get through this is realize you're not going to make it. And then you can relax. And you're not dead yet. Let me enjoy the day. Enjoying the moment is a good thing. And what about it, Clay?
So I think we can all agree Henry's not the best character in the world. None of us really like him. But like you said, the thing that I like about him is that both at the beginning of the book, during the war, he is so scared and very afraid of death. But once he accepts death and once he just stops thinking about it, he performs well, and he, like in the book, feels like he's part of a cog in a machine where he's just doing the stuff kind of not thinking. It's like when you go to a job and you do it for so long that you stop thinking about it and you stop worrying about, oh, I have this much stuff to do. You just end up doing it and then you forget how much time passes.
Can I have true confessions? All right, honest confession. that first month, when we were learning the details of remote, I was really frustrated. I felt like I was lagging behind, particularly in all the technology, and that was really frustrating. And every day was, the teaching wasn't, you weren't, but that made, and you're thinking, I don't think I can do this, you know, just throw up your hands. When I accepted, kind of, I had to come to a point of acceptance, and I made it through another week. And I got better at it. Now doing those things that frustrated me, now it just takes time, but it requires no frustration on my part. I like that idea of accepting, you know, just accepting it, doing it. Don't complain about it, just do it. And sooner, before you know it, you'll do it well, or do it adequately. It won't be an issue. Look on page 130. We cannot exhaust this today. I just want to, I'm not asking you to accept my interpretation of the book, but I think that I can make a case. Some of the things I've heard, all I want you to do is make that case next Wednesday when you write, because I don't see it. I think the evidence points towards someone who is changing, not perfectly or totally, but there are some definite changes. He is better than he was at the beginning. Look on page 30. This goes, I think you said this, Clayton, or maybe Kat said this, but many of you may have. Why don't you look at the top of the page? For a time, this surprises me the more I teach the book. If Jim Conklin's death changed him. Do we know why? Can we agree why Jim Conklin's death changed him? How did Jim Conklin's death change? Yes.
Did it give him the anger he needed for the enemy?
A real motive to fight. And Patty, I think I've left you out. That you haven't had a chance to share. Would you like to share now? I'd love for you to share.
Okay.
Sure.
I mean, I was kind of gonna say what Clayton said, but I guess I'll still say kind of what Clayton said. So, I personally enjoyed seeing, I don't like Henry, like, I just don't like Henry, but I sort of like seeing his self-growth. At the beginning,
Yeah.
he was sort of like a child, he sort of ran away from everything that scared
Right.
him. But at the end, it's a totally different person, and especially the way that we split up the chapters to be like the reading, you can see like his growth in each section.
Yeah.
And it just sort of like shows up what doesn't kill you does make you stronger, and I think all of us can sort of relate to that.
Well, see, I like what you're saying. You don't like him, but you recognize that he's grown. I mean, it doesn't matter if we like him or not. That's all our opinions, and everyone's legitimate. But I think we do have to admit he's grown. Look on page 130. Besides the death of Jim Conklin, what's the other thing that happened that very moment that he's now taking, even after he's become a man? What is it? And I'll read it just so we'll save time. This is the last page of the book. For a time, this pursuing recollection of the tattered man took all elation from the youth's veins. He saw his vivid error, and he was afraid that it would stand before him all of his life. He took no share of the chatter of his comrades, nor did he look at them or know them, save when he felt sudden suspicion that they were seeing his thoughts and scrutinizing each detail of the scene with the tattered soldier. What happened with the tattered soldier that now haunts him? Yes.
He left it to die.
Exactly. Now, well, let me keep reading. Yet gradually he mustered force to put the sin at a distance. And at last his eyes seemed to open to some new ways. He found that he could look back upon the brass and bombast, you are talking about his pride, of his earlier Gospels and see them truly. He was gleeful when he discovered that he now despised them. Have you ever truly despised something that you did, not in that kind of self-pitying way, but you just realized, I was totally wrong there? What does he do? What is it that allows him to get over what he did to the tattered soldier? Yes.
I think partially it was the fact that he started to believe like in himself and like what he did on the battlefield was like worth the fight, and so he put up a good fight in honor of the tattered soldier.
And what, yes,
Yeah, he doesn't feel the need to defend his actions anymore, because he's trying to accept that, like, he was wrong.
have you ever just come to that point, you know, you try to rationalize and justify, and you say, I'm wrong. You know, it's just, it was wrong. I'm not gonna try to defend myself anymore. I just messed up. But at that point, and assuming you get, and even in that, people don't have to forgive you. But what do you have to do? Listen, I can't undo what just happened. I hate it, but I can't change it. So I got to move on. If it's a relationship, I hope we can be friends. But if you choose not to, I don't blame you. But I'm not gonna let this be the end of my life. It's that perspective again. And finally, we got a couple minutes. The next paragraph. With this conviction came a store of assurance. He felt a quiet manhood, non-assertive, but of sturdy and strong blood. He knew that he would no more quail before his gods, wherever they should point. Now this is a very important line. He had been to touch the great death, and found that after all, it was but the great death. He was a man. What did he say yesterday that made him a man? Remember, he was still a man. Because what? Remember, he returned, and what did they not know about? They didn't know that. They didn't know he ran away. And because they didn't know, it didn't happen, right? We talked about that. Like, if nobody finds out, it didn't really happen. That's what he said yesterday. Now he's saying it happened. What is his attitude ultimately toward death? He says he's been to touch the great. It's the ultimate fear every human being has. And in the book, it was his ultimate fear. Well, actually not. It turns out to be the ultimate fear was running and being caught and being made fun of.
Caught by his own people or by enemies?
Yes, by his own people. So what does it mean he'd been to touch the great death? In fact, what is it, ultimately to grow up, what do we have to do about death?
Accept it?
We have to deal with it. Every human being